Hello everyone, and welcome to a special panel on The Dark Knight Rises. I'm Captain Logan, and here are my co-hosts. It's the unstoppable Shades at Night.
Hello everybody, I'm Delayed.
It's the uncanny Manos.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
And the invincible King.
Hello.
And I have no subtitle.
Oh.
Today we're going to be talking Dark Knight Rises, and first and foremost, I gotta mention that unfortunately Eric couldn't be here with us today, and Shades very graciously decided to step in. Thanks a lot for being with us, Shades.
My pleasure.
Round out the group. Eric at the very last minute couldn't make it, and we have been trying to put this together for 3 weeks now. We've been having a really hard time getting our schedules to match, and realized that if we didn't go ahead and do it now, it was never going to happen, because Eric and King could not possibly get together at the same time, except for today. This was the only one. So anyway, I've got to really apologize to everybody that we don't have Eric on this panel. I know people were really interested to hear more about what he felt about the film, because he now kind of famously or infamously has a different opinion than a lot of folks. But I think you're still going to see a very wide variety of opinions on the film. Here's how I'd like to open this up, if you guys don't mind. Instead of the way we've done the other panels, because this is on one movie and this is more, a review. Instead of just going round robin like we've done on the other panels and say just what you think of the film, I think the way I'd like to open this, especially because we've all done reviews. Shades, have you done a review?
I had recorded a review with Coolio Vids, and for whatever reason, YouTube won't let me upload it because it's too big, apparently. So I need to work out a way to fix that.
Weird. Okay, all right. So we've all at least recorded reviews, and so what I'd like to do is starting with Manos, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, Manos. I'd like you to. I thought the best way to start this out to really open this up for discussion would be to tell us what you thought was the absolute best thing about the film and the absolute worst thing about the film, with no interruptions. Manos, go ahead.
Oh. The best thing about the film, I would have to say that I think possibly the best thing about the film is that Nolan was able to do it. He was able to conclude his trilogy on a superhero franchise that was very successful and got bigger with every film, and was able, for the most part, pull it off. And I've seen some other franchises not so good, even when the same director stuck around. I think the performances are all on target. Every performance, Bale, Hathaway, Hardy, Oldman, Michael Caine, everybody was fantastic in their roles, big and small. I think if I had to go with the worst thing, I think the story did have some inconsistencies, and it dragged in places. I think probably the story may be my biggest faults, and some choices, I think, which, to be honest, might just be under just taste issues, and views of Batman. That some of the things that Batman does in this film, and the constant condition he's in wasn't really something I was completely for, and then of course the character of John Blake is a terrible, terrible waste of film.
Okay, no interruptions. King, the best thing and the worst thing about the film.
For the best thing, I have a couple things that I put up as the best. One is Anne Hathaway as Catwoman. I really loved her in the film, and it's such a glorious feeling. I'm actually a fan of Anne Hathaway. She was in a movie I liked a few years back called Rachel Getting Married. She's a very good actress, and it's so funny when I can sit there and read all these people who have never really seen her in a film commentate and say that she's not going to do the part, and then she comes out, and not only does she do it, but she gets all these people saying that she's the best part of the film. It's such kind of a gratifying feeling to sit there and know that all these people are wrong, and then she comes out and proves and shows why they're wrong. And the other thing that I really loved about the film is that Nolan managed to make this a sequel to both Begins and The Dark Knight in a very compelling and important way, where I feel it's narratively it's much more connected to Begins, but emotionally it's very connected to The Dark Knight and pulled both those films in seamlessly, whereas I think in other trilogies you kind of get this feeling that, you know, they're making a third movie, or maybe just making a second movie, and they're not really pulling everything together. The worst thing about it is, since the film's been out, a lot of people have talked about it, and information's come out that actually showcases that there are scenes missing from the film. One of which is Bane's origin is actually missing from the film. There was actually a lot more shown with Bane that Nolan wasn't able to put in. And knowing he had a 2-hour and 45-minute movie, you know, he put a lot into this, and I think a lot of people, you know, from Warner Brothers probably said, we love you, but we don't love you that much to let you have this go on longer than you are already. You know, I mean, maybe that might not be the reason why, but that's kind of the vibe I've been getting from articles I've read and whatnot. So that is actually the most disappointing thing, knowing that he did not have the 100% control that I thought he did, where there are scenes actually missing from the film.
Okay, I'll go ahead and go next. I think I'm going to second King. My favorite thing about the movie is also Anne Hathaway as Catwoman. So if I had to pick another thing, because I don't want to just say the thing that you said, I'm going to go with the fact that No Man's Land and Nightfall are blended. Because I never would have thought that could work, and it really kind of does. The parts that I was most happy with and smiling ear to ear at were the Nightfall and No Man's Land bits, and that's me as a comic book fan. That wouldn't mean anything to anybody that hadn't read those stories. But being my two favorite Batman stories, the fact that things were pulled from both of them and pulled pretty well was really exciting for me. I still for my money, I would have preferred No Man's Land the movie, but that's just me. The worst thing for me, I guess I'm kind of going to have to second what King said, because I was going to say the fact that Bane kind of gets shafted at the end, and clearly, and King, I've been reading about that too. Clearly, the reason he got shafted was not because they didn't think it through, but because stuff got left on the cutting room floor, and that's really unfortunate. It's especially unfortunate because of the fact that Dark Knight was such a complete movie. It's sadly ironic that this much, and I've heard people say upwards of an hour 20, and I don't know if I buy that, but like that this much was cut out of this movie when Dark Knight was filmed nearly word for word what was on the page. There's not a single scene that was in that script that's not in the movie, and the only bits in the movie that were not in the script were ad-libs. And then to go into Rises and find out that much stuff is missing. But anyway, the thing I found most disappointing was how Talia sums up all of her motivations in a single line of dialogue at the end, and that it shafts, and we'll get to that, and then it shafts Bane a lot, because I found him extremely interesting, and then I found out that he was kind of sort of just a thug. I mean, not really just a thug, they're partners, but it wasn't as interesting as I thought it was when I thought that his backstory was his own backstory. So so those are mine. Kirk, best and worst things.
You guys took all the good stuff. Come on.
Sorry.
Well, no, I mean, honestly,
Kirk
like,
says, I agree. Move on.
Basically, like, copy and paste what you guys said for the best parts. I mean, I really thought from the beginning when she was cast that Anne Hathaway was going to be a good Selena Kyle. Everyone up in arms about, she's the Disney princess or whatever is, she hasn't been a princess for a decade. So, but, I thought she was going to be good, and she was even better than that. She literally did bring Selena Kyle off the page. And everything that everyone said about the suit when that first photo was released, just, all that is thrown out the window now, which is good. I did like how it was almost the perfect ending. It really, and I loved how it was a sequel to both Begins and Dark Knight. And because he is my favorite villain, I've got to say Scarecrow's cameo just really made me happy. Yeah, so honestly, like, all the good stuff is great. And I guess as far as the worst stuff goes, I remember having a conversation with you, Cap, before, like, the title was released and everything, you were saying that you'd like to see Bane as the villain, and I was saying how I didn't care to see Bane, because I'm not really a fan of the character, and that was honestly because, with the exception of Nightfall, he's generally used as a henchman to other villains. Like, he's brought in as the muscle to beat up Batman and whatever. And so I wasn't really a fan of Bane, but I was really liking what Nolan was doing with the character, and I kind of turned around my opinions on that. And then he was kind of ended up being a henchman at the end of this. So that is kind of sad, especially when I loved the scene where he was talking about how he was, you know, here to fulfill Ra's al Ghul's destiny. So I was kind of disappointed by that. So I guess
that was a good imitation.
There's not much I will say that is. Thank you. But there's not much I'd say, honestly, that is necessarily bad about the film. But I was disappointed by that.
Okay, not to call you out or anything, but I gotta ask you this question, Kirk. What comic book stories have you read where Bane's a henchman?
Well, I sort of think more to the animated series and stuff like that. He rarely has...
but the animated series is infamous for doing Bane wrong.
Yeah, may I add, I think wasn't he a henchman in Contagion?
I don't remember his part in Contagion, Manos.
I think it was Contagion, but somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But there was a, what, King?
I was just going to say, yeah, you're right, there was a Batman story where he was a henchman for Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah, because what they were doing, in the storyline was for a few issues, they were making it look like it was Ubu that was doing all this stuff.
Oh, okay.
And then he pulls off his mask, and then you see his mask underneath that mask. It was Ubu. It was Ubu. No, it was Bane. And Bane was like the new successor to the throne, where after Nightfall, Ra's al Ghul had noticed somebody took out his number one choice to replace him, so he contacted him and had him take the role of the upcoming head of the demon head thing.
I'm gonna argue, though, that that's not so much of a henchman. I mean, like, it kind of is, but here's the thing. Between Nightfall and No Man's Land, he was getting over Venom and getting to where he could live without it, and that's probably what he was doing while he was biding his time and getting over being addicted to that substance.
Yeah.
But anyway, Kirk, I'm just saying, you need to read more comics, dude, because if you actually liked Bane in the movie, he is characterized surprisingly off the page.
Yeah, well, that's sorry. The point I didn't make was that I don't know a whole lot about the character outside of the animated series, because the animated series somewhat turned me off Bane, from his gimp suit mask to everything.
Oh, yeah. It should have. It was stupid. Yeah. And I love the animated series, but Bane doesn't work in that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I didn't care for Bane in that, and that's sort of what I had thought of the character. That's sort of what I had thought the character of. No, hold on. When I think of the character, I used to think of the animated series, with the exception of Nightfall, and I've heard Batman vs. Bane is good as well. But yeah, so I didn't know a whole lot about Bane, so I was kind of turned off by the choice to make him the villain. But it's just kind of ironic that my view of Bane kind of ended up being what happened to him in this movie.
In Kirk's defense, most people's idea of Batman is the animated series more than probably anything else, so...
Or at least people our age, yeah. Or closer to, well, anyway.
Yeah.
We actually do have a spread age group in this panel, but
I
yeah.
will say that, like, the Bruce Timm Batman, I think is the definitive Batman.
And that's coming from somebody that knew Batman years before that. So
yeah, we go way back. We were in Nam together.
Keep in mind that Manos and I talked for 25 minutes once on a video about Super Friends. So. Wouldn't it be great if Bane had somehow been in Super Friends? Anyway, so since we're on that, let's go ahead and talk about Bane a little bit. What worked with that character and what didn't, and did the voice turn anybody off? Because that's what everybody's talking about.
I think the voice is dependent on how many times you see the film, because what I've noticed is the more I've seen it 3 times now, and the first time I felt it was very difficult to understand him in certain places. Like sometimes the voice was perfectly clear and I got everything I needed, but then there are other places where it felt really muffled. And then the second time I see it, I know what he's, it helps to know what he's going to say going into it. So you can already know certain bits of dialogue, and then you can catch what you missed, and that makes it much better. And then the third time you see it, it's far more menacing because you have a kind of a complete, you can hear everything he's going to say, and it's far more menacing and scary. And there are moments in that film where, like from the first shot of him just, telling one of his men that he has to stay there to die, to that part where he's there with Daggett, and Daggett's like, I have all this money and I'm paying you, and he's like, do you really think that gives you control over me? Do you feel like you're more powerful than me? To him just talking to the people in Gotham, and he can be a really frightening character.
King, I gotta say this. I think that if you were 100% right about that you have to see it 3 times to really even appreciate the character, that would really be a problem. But to your point, the voice is really actually not the problem, or at least from my experience, it was the movie theater. The first theater I saw it in, it was too open, and the sound was weird, and I couldn't understand every 4th or 5th word. But the thing is, you said you see it a second time and then you know what he's going to say, but I didn't, because I didn't understand what he said, right? So I went and saw it a second time, and it was simply clearer because I was in a theater that didn't have that problem. So I don't know. Some people are having problems with the voice, but I will be really interested to see if anybody says that when it's on DVD. Because I think it's simply theaters that are causing that problem.
And we'll see it 3 times. You can basically say that about watching a foreign film without the subtitles. Yeah, about the 3rd time, you probably pretty much figure out what they're saying to each other.
Yeah, I mean, you can figure out the context, but you don't even have a mouth moving.
Yeah, that's true. That's not helpful.
It's funny because the first time I saw it, I actually was able to understand pretty much everything that he said. I found it strange when people were saying I couldn't understand him. Maybe I just had really awesome acoustics in my cinema, but I was able to understand it. The only thing that turned me off about the voice was I had seen the prologue for the film before Mission Impossible 4, and they re-recorded all of the dialogue in that scene with the exception of crashing this plane. And it turned me off because the voice is very clearly different, and at times he sounds like Tom Hardy, which is weird because to me, I mean, I know we see his face for 2 seconds towards the end, but he's not Tom Hardy in a similar sense to, Heath Ledger's unrecognizable as the Joker. Like, everything from his eyes to his voice to his accent to his physicality, it's not the Tom Hardy that we know from Inception or Warrior or anything like that. So I found that distracting the first time I saw it, that the prologue, his voice was just suddenly so different to the rest of the film. And if you actually go and watch the film with that in mind, I think it's really noticeable.
The first time, a lot of the things that turned me off to the movie were less of problems when I saw it a second time, just because I was ready for them, and I could actually look at the film a little bit more critically, and I was better at merging out what were taste issues and what were actually problems with the movie. So the second time, I didn't have this to the same degree, but the first time, I love Tom Hardy. He's an actor I like a lot. I've liked him all the way back from Star Trek Nemesis. Now, Nemesis is terrible, but he's great in it. And I mean, like Shinzon could have been a great character. And Bane in a lot of ways is kind of what Shinzon should have been. But well, okay, only because I sort of understand what he's doing and why. But only sort of. Anyway, but with Bane, I kept having to remind myself I was watching Tom Hardy. I felt like it could have been anybody. And, I mean, it's impressive that such a small guy with such a small build could turn himself into Bane. And, because, I mean, Tom Hardy's not a big guy. And,
he's shorter than Christian Bale.
He's a lot shorter than Christian Bale.
Oh,
and I mean,
really?
Yeah.
Wow,
and they had to shoot, they had to really struggle to shoot it right so that he looked a lot bigger. But, like, well, and I shouldn't even say struggle. It looked great.
So,
I
like,
mean, he
when
really
they
did
shoot
look
Tom
huge.
Cruise with any woman.
Yes, just like that. but anyway, I don't know. I felt like I didn't get to see Tom Hardy play Bane because he had this big giant thing on his face, and he had this accent, and then there was electronic stuff done to his voice after that, and it was again, it wasn't as bad the second time because I was ready for it, and I mean, like, he's acting clearly, but it kind of could have, in some ways, it could have been anybody. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of acting. You go in there and you become somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's cheating when you have a big thing on your face so you can't tell who it is anyway.
But here's the question: like, Bane wears a mask, so doesn't that?
Big thing on his face, but I'm just. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, if Bane doesn't have a mask, then isn't that kind of not the character?
Well, I think that maybe this is a silly thing to say. I think there's a difference between having a big metal piece on your face and having cloth.
Mm-hmm. Well, it also went in line with the story. I mean, they're substituting Venom they're substituting the painkiller for Venom.
And
yeah.
Also, I feel like there needs to be a reason for him to wear the mask.
And here he has it.
Yeah. If he's just wearing a Lucha Libre mask, then I would be asking, like, why is he wearing that?
Well, they still could have done Venom. And the thing is, I'm not complaining that they didn't use Venom. Having said that, I think they could have totally gotten away with it.
Considering certain other things they did in the film?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, you know what? Even the way, if I had felt like Dark Knight Rises was right in line with the other two movies, and I don't entirely, but if I had, I still would have thought it could have worked. Because we had fear toxin in the first movie. Why couldn't we have? Why couldn't we have that?
No, that's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
I actually thought that the fear toxin might have something to do with the Venom because, there was rumored before the film that Bane was going to have something to do with the League of Shadows, and that's where the fear toxin originally comes from and begins. So yeah, I actually thought that might have something to do with it, that they couldn't go down that route.
But I mean, the painkillers in this film basically have the same effect as the Venom does.
Yeah.
The Venom there to make him stronger.
No, that's not true. That's not true. It's very different. I mean, the Venom gives him superhuman strength, and this stuff simply takes his pain away.
Well, but it's effectively the same thing because no one can hurt him unless they break the mask. It's like if you break one of the things on that connect Bane to his Venom, all of a sudden he loses his strength. So
yeah, that's similar, but it's not the same thing. I'm just saying. I mean, like, he doesn't have greater than normal human strength. I mean, it is different.
It's different, but it's the same ballpark.
Keep in mind that when Batman fights Bane the second time, finally after Nightfall, not the second time, but later on in No Man's Land, and he's not on Venom anymore, Batman makes a really big deal out of how he is nothing without that. And how much easier he is to fight because he's not super strong anymore. But the thing with the mask is he couldn't survive at all without it. Like, he could never get off of it. It's a different thing. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just it's an interesting approximation, but it's not the same thing.
Well,
which again, it's not a problem. I'm just saying.
Well, if memory serves me right, he punches him in the face, and that's when he starts going down.
Yeah.
Well, he hit him with the blade on his. I don't know.
On the blade.
Yeah.
He should have done that in the first fight.
He should have.
Like, hit him in the face.
He should have started wailing on that on his mask in the first fight. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
but
like
Batman,
you're supposed to be a genius. look at that thing on his face that looks kind of important, that would be the first thing I'd be hitting.
I think it's fair to say that this particular Batman is not a genius.
No, he's not.
He's smart, but he's not a genius, and has never had any detective training.
Well,
And I guess that's one of the frustrating things about, I guess maybe with the third film, because, you know, with Begins, you go, well, this is Batman getting started. And Dark Knight, yeah, he was kind of there, but he did seem like he was getting tons of help and luck. And now with the third one, you're just kind of like resigned to the fact that, yeah, this isn't the comic book Batman I was always kind of hoping for. I mean, he's close, but he's still a guy who needs tons of help from old dudes.
Well, the way I've always...
And he misses a complete, like, easy target on someone's face, which looks really, like, important to him. So, I mean, I'd get a 2x4 and start whacking at that.
Well, to be fair, Bane was beating the crap out of Batman for most of that fight, though.
That's true. I mean, like, Batman did get some punches.
I do remember him getting some punches in, but he didn't hit that spot.
I mean, he did aim for it a couple times, and Bane kept stopping him.
Yeah.
So I think that is important to know. But one other thing I want to make...
Weakness is right on your face.
The other important thing I did want to note is it's important to note that Christopher Nolan's a big fan of the James Bond series. So he approached the Batman films in two ways, one of which was in a James Bond way, and the other was, and I found this out recently, one of his favorite films is Blade Runner. And when he first made Batman Begins, he went into it going, sitting everyone down and had them watch Blade Runner and say, hey, this is what we're going to try and do. Which I think is why this last film is far more sci-fi than the other two. There's a lot more escapism in it than you'd find in Begins or The Dark Knight. Just a little bit more. And I also think another big issue that people will probably have with this film, and I wanted to mention this now because I want to hear your opinions on this. The Begins and Dark Knight were crime films. But when we get to Rise, the Mafia is essentially dead, and it kind of turns into a war movie, more than a crime drama.
Yeah, I guess so. It's more of kind of a supervillain revenge plot, really.
Yeah,
it's also
the problem...
a disaster film.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
The problem with that, and I think what I found disappointing about that, is that you only know that it's a giant revenge movie at the end in a single line of dialogue.
Yeah.
Well, Bane does say he's there to fulfill Ra's al Ghul's destiny, and he says, "I am the League option." That's
different than revenge. It's different.
Not entirely. I mean, Ra's al Ghul
I don't think it is. Yeah.
Ra's al Ghul's entire point in Batman Begins was literally, other than bringing Bruce Wayne into the fold of the League of Shadows, was to destroy Gotham. That was his big goal, because he tried it once with money, they failed, so he tried again with the fear toxin, so now Bane and them are coming back, and their whole point is to destroy Gotham, and what they're doing here is, they do both the money thing, and they bring in a special weapon. They destroy the stock exchange that takes Bruce Wayne out of it, and then they bring in this nuclear physicist to turn what is supposed to be an energy-saving device, or an energy device, and turn it into a nuke that's there to destroy Gotham. That's their entire purpose. To finish what Ra's al Ghul started, and at the same time get vengeance on Batman for basically killing Talia's father and Bane's mentor. Well,
okay, there's two big problems with that. The first one is you don't know that it's personal revenge until the end with Talia. And she's not given enough screen time that I care about that. The second thing is you don't, well, what was I going to say? See, now I've lost it.
I don't know. Well, let me pick up.
Because I got stuck on the Talia thing, and now I'm thinking about that. Go ahead, man.
Let me pick up on that. Maybe just a few more scenes with her as Miss Tate, I think her fake name is.
Yeah.
Maybe just a few scenes, like building up that kind of, mystery or of the character.
I know what it was. King, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
How do they know that Batman killed Ra's al Ghul?
Well, I mean, the fact of it is that at the end of Begin, Batman didn't pull in all of his henchmen. Some of them clearly had to have gotten away.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, he just knocked a few dudes down and then went after Roz. It's not like he tied them up and said, all right, you're going to stay here, and then we're going to come back and put you in jail. No, he knocked a couple dudes down off a ledge, and then he got his grappling hook and went and fought Roz, and then Roz is dead. And those guys obviously know. And I mean, I understand what you're going to say next is that they should have said that.
Well, they should have.
There should have been a scene that said that. And I will give you that. That's probably one big fault of this film. This film, Nolan kind of took an Inception approach of let the audience figure it out. They're smart enough to understand this without me spoon-feeding all the information.
Nope, don't agree with that. It's not a matter of spoon-feeding. It's a matter of stuff got left out.
It's interesting saying that stuff got left out because Nolan has done interviews in the past where, like we were saying earlier, all of what's written about Dark Knight, written in the scripts for Dark Knight, is put on page. Nolan has said that everything he shoots ends up in the film, and even with Begins, and I'm sure with his other films as well. But it's interesting here because there are. It's not like, well, clearly things must have been left out. There are, in fact, scenes that are deleted. Like Miranda Tate there's a scene with Miranda Tate that was going to be Lucius's first scene where they're talking and about the Clean Energy Project and blah, blah, blah. And that's when she informs him that Daggett is trying to get involved in Wayne Enterprises. And then he sort of walks out of the room and then it's the scene where it's it's Bruce Wayne. So, like, even a scene like that, I definitely feel like there was stuff missing with Talia. I'd be interested to see how much, because I feel like an hour is maybe a lot too much that would be deleted. But
well, I mean, it is a 2 hour and 45-minute film.
This makes me wonder. Does anybody here think the film may be overwritten?
Yes, absolutely it is. There's a lot in it that doesn't need to be there. And here's the thing. I feel like if you got a 2 hour and 45-minute movie and I'm sitting there wondering things like in a Nolan film, and I don't believe, by the way, that Nolan sits down and writes a script and says, yeah, after Batman is at the prison for a while, we're going to have him just show back up with no explanation as to how he gets there. Back into Gotham. When the bridges are cut off and there are guards everywhere, and the last person on Earth Bane would ever let back in would be freaking Batman.
Okay.
Hold on. I'm not done. I don't believe Nolan writes a script like that. He wrote an explanation. It's not in the movie. That's what I think. And so King, you can't tell me that a scene like that is just him trying to let us fill in the blanks for ourselves. That is really lazy. I mean, I don't think he would do that.
Oh, I know.
I don't.
Oh God, what, King?
No. I mean, it's obviously, if you just pay attention, obviously, if you watch the film a few times, Green Lantern helped him.
Oh, okay, all right, cool.
I was actually going to say, if you watch The Dark Knight, we realize that he's not opposed to letting other people know who he is, if it's for helping him actually be Batman and fulfilling a certain job that he's trying to fulfill. So it's not...
King, it doesn't matter how you can explain it, I want to see it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you shouldn't have to make stuff up.
No, you shouldn't have to make stuff up.
And that's what I hear a lot of fans do with this particular film. Now, look, I'm a big fan of leaving it up to the audience and letting them kind of debate and discuss. There's a fine line between that, which I'm a big fan of. Don't get me wrong, and then kind of leaving stuff out and forcing fans to make stuff up.
Okay, I want to question this. You love 2001, correct? The Stanley Kubrick film.
Yes, I love 2001. Yes.
Okay, that film is entirely the audience making stuff up.
No, it's not.
Yes.
No, it's not.
Oh, God.
It is.
Yes, it is.
Everything is there in the film visually. We're not going to go there.
No, that film is entirely BS by the fan base.
No. We're not going to go there, King. We're not going to go there.
Okay.
You're not going to go there.
I went there.
We're recording this for Geekvolution.
I don't think...
We're not going to push...
Manos is trying to keep the kid gloves on. Here's the thing, King. you shouldn't have to go to another film or another franchise to explain why things are okay in this one, especially because this is a freaking sequel. Especially because it's the third part of a trilogy.
Yeah,
the
but
first two
that's the
movies,
point I'm making.
which I understand why most, if not everything, in those movies happens, man.
But no, that's
There
the point
is
I'm making.
a
Like,
thing.
there is a trilogy here, and he's using things from the other two films, and he's just putting it in here. He's not.
What do you-
No, I'm saying, like, in The Dark Knight, he showed you that Batman's not afraid to get help from other people. So why should
then
we
who
have
is
to
the people
re-see?
that helped him?
Yeah, what are we talking about?
Well, I mean, when you see him get out of that pit, he walks right into the city.
How did he get there? It's
No,
halfway across the world. How did he get there?
Okay,
He's broke.
we don't know it's halfway across the world, though. Can I just say, like, I know it's filmed in India, but we don't actually get told where it is.
It was actually Detroit.
How could
it could
it
have been
possibly?
like Bloodhaven? Like,
Kirk,
Have you
but,
seen
but,
Detroit lately? That was Detroit.
I'm kidding.
Kirk, but we know that the League of Shadows is halfway across the world.
Yeah, but that wasn't the League of Shadows.
No, I know that, but they were involved with them.
Were they? No, like, honestly, like, were we told that they were involved with the League of
No,
Shadows?
I don't mean that they were involved in that they were like allies or something. I'm just saying that we know that we know that Ra's al Ghul and Talia had that he rescued them from there. I would be really surprised if it was like across the bay from Gotham, dude. Like,
No, I'm not saying it's that close.
okay,
No,
but
I agree
Kirk,
that, like, it should.
but Kirk,
it was like, oh, he's in Gotham. Like, it was weird to not show how he got there.
yeah.
At the same time, this is also a character that disappears as soon as people turn around. But there is the thing where
that's
he
never
tells
major-
Selina that there are ways out of the city, and there's also the question of how does he get out of Gotham after he supposedly blows up. And so, I mean, I don't know. I was okay with them not explaining that because I'm not sure if that necessarily would have made the film better, showing how he got there. The important thing was that he got there.
And he does make that point. You are right. He does make that point where he's like, there are ways to get out of the city. So if there are ways that Batman knows how to get out of the city that Bane obviously hasn't covered up well enough that they can get out, then there's ways to get in. They're making the argument that, Bane didn't take care of things as well as he thought he did. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a way out.
They're also...
No,
yeah, they don't go... The mercenaries, like, Bane's people don't go into the Batcave, clearly, as well. And they make the point in Begins that the Batcave was originally used to get free slaves from the North. So it connected to the Underground Railroad and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm not making stuff up. That was just something I didn't even think necessarily about it. I just figured, he probably has ways out and into the city through the Batcave.
That's the point I'm making.
Wait, the Underground Railroad was mainly a metaphor. It was mainly a term. It wasn't an actual tunnel system.
Yeah, they just hid. Yeah, his ancestors just hid people down there. We don't know that it necessarily connects to anything.
No, that's true. We don't necessarily know, but it's implied.
It's not implied.
No, but the Underground Railroad, when you study it, you know that there are about 3 or 4 different paths that they would take to get to the north, and if that's one of them, then it's connected to something. It's not just a hiding place. There's a trail that people would follow to get from one place to another to avoid slave hunters. That way they wouldn't get captured.
A trail that could have been, I don't know, developed in the last 150 years.
Well, I don't mean to belabor this point too long. It's just, Kirk, what's funny about this is I feel like you're making two points at the same time. Like you're saying, well, it's important, all that matters is that he gets back and we don't need to know how he did it, but at the same time, you're also saying that there are all these ways that are already within the movie so you can kind of make up something?
I'm not saying that it's not...
He's saying that it's connected to the trilogy.
Well, I think my problem, my own, ordinarily, if this was the Bruce Timm Batman, I would totally accept it.
Yeah, me too.
But the problem is, this is the Nolan Batman, which is not as good at being Batman as Bruce Timm's, where Bruce Timm's Batman could do stuff that's mysterious, and you go, ha, he's awesome. Oh, this
guy hasn't been around long enough. He's had like 3-4 missions tops. That's it.
He's constantly crippled. he
He
needs
has
like
no cartilage in his knees.
yeah. So I don't know. I'm not sure if the film earned that kind of get out.
I don't think it does either, and part of the reason is because a lot of people's answer to that, and again, it's a big problem for me. I know it's not for other people, but the answer a lot of people have had was, well, he's Batman. And I'm like, okay, here's the problem with that in this particular franchise. We spent an entire movie in Batman Begins setting up a place where you can't just say, oh, he's Batman. I mean, that movie is all about how does he do things. It explains everything. One of the things that's so cool and clever about Batman Begins is that it in a, not an entirely realistic, but at least in a grounded way, makes Batman make sense. And then you get to Rises, and you've got a Batman who has not been Batman for 8 years, and who we find out at the end is not going to continue being Batman. He's a finite Batman. He's not going to keep going, so we can't have that title I always wanted after Batman Begins, which was Batman Keeps Going. And then they also conveniently don't tell you how he does stuff, like just show right back up in the city. I don't know. It's a problem for me. It seems very inconsistent with the other two movies.
I don't think. I mean, like the point Kirk was making a second ago, and that I was trying to start was there's a lot in the last two films that Nolan is taking the other two films, applying things that happen in there, and using it here. But he's not spoon feeding every little detail to you.
I don't think it. I think it is somewhat of a problem that they don't explain how he got back there, and I feel like that could have maybe been done in a quick sentence. Bruce,
it should be done.
And maybe it is. Maybe it's one of those scenes that got cut out. They said that stuff was cut out.
That's what I'm saying. I think it was, but that's a problem for me. It should have been there.
Until we see the full director's cut, which
and we never will.
Long,
it's Nolan.
We'll be able to have a different discussion, like with Daredevil, for instance, or even Watchmen to some extent. But,
I don't think we'll ever see a director's cut, though.
Really?
Yeah, Eric and I were talking about this today. Nolan, and Eric made a great point when he said, Nolan makes such a big deal out of his movies standing on their own that no matter what the reason that stuff got cut out, Eric says he doubts that there's any way Nolan would even agree to a director's cut, and I tend to agree with that.
Is Nolan that religious about it?
Yeah, he kind of is.
Yeah, he's said in interviews. He did this great interview in Australia where he said we don't do deleted scenes because everything's in the film, but he sees DVDs as more of a way to, I can't remember the exact term he used, but it's just a good way for people who appreciate the film it's like a museum type of thing, it's on display kind of thing on a DVD. I don't know if he'll if he'll put a whole thing together that isn't in the cinema onto DVD. If there are deleted scenes, they'll probably end up on the DVD. There was this cool, for The Dark Knight, they showed all the other angles they had of the hospital blowing up, including Heath Ledger in the bus, and I'm not sure if we'll have a director's cut necessarily.
So basically, he's the exact opposite of George Lucas.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You could not get further more opposite.
Yes. Well, let's move on to some other points.
Yes.
Hey, Manos. How come you hate John Blake?
Because he's boring.
Aww.
So
I don't like him.
I disagree.
And the big deal at the end that his real name is Robin is a letdown, and
it's not a letdown. It's cheesy.
It's cheesy.
Not cheesy. He was clearly going to be Robin throughout the entire film. I mean, if there's one incredibly obvious thing in this film, it's that he was going to be Robin the entire time.
King, I'm going to do something incredibly mean.
Why make up a new character with a different name?
Yeah.
It's an amalgamation of them all.
King, I got to say this.
Then name one of them after them, and then do the amalgamation. That's what Bruce Timm did with the Tim Drake. He sort of combined Jason Todd and Tim Drake.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of, I don't know, I'm sorry, it's just his character just kill so much screen time. We talk about, we could have used more with Talia. Oh, we could have used more with Catwoman. Or we could have had that backstory with Bane. Well, if he was stripped out of the film, we could have had all that. And
he had something important to film.
His character, by the way, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is just fine in the movie. He's very good, as always. But his character is a screen vacuum. And the big reveal at the end, like, woohoo, his name is really Robin, fans. Isn't that cool? No, that's not cool. That's kind of lame. Oh, I mean, it's the same. You know what? He is the Barbara Pennyworth of this film.
Oh, hey, no.
Okay.
You know what? Even I wouldn't go that far.
I am going there.
That's great.
Hold on.
The kitty was slipping off.
Let me explain.
I love that. That was great.
Both are original characters taken to make look like, their comic book counterparts. They're shoehorned in. They have some kind of like vague connection, and then they like become part of the Bat family at the end. And there's really no reason why they couldn't have been the original characters in the first place.
The difference is that Barbara Pennyworth literally had zero purpose in Batman. I mean, she was...
Well, what was that super awesome purpose that John Blake had?
Well, I mean, one of the big purposes of him was actually getting Batman back into the game. He played that role that Tim Drake initially had. And
no one could have done that.
Huh?
No one else in the film could have done that.
He was designed for that purpose, and
he didn't need to be there, though.
But
he didn't need to be designed for that.
Any other character could have done that.
Alfred, the character in this film, didn't want to be Batman anymore.
I gotta be honest with you, though, King. I didn't get that from it, and not even seeing it twice. I really kind of got the sense that he would have still gone out and been Batman, even if I want to call him Drake, even if Blake had never shown up. I mean, yeah, Blake shows up and he's like, you haven't been in the game for so long, and you need to pay attention to the details, and there are still bad things happening, even though you haven't been around. But that's not what got him to be Batman. What got him to go back and be Batman was, there's a supervillain again. Gotham needs me. I don't think he needed Blake for that, dude.
Yeah, for Blake to go, hey, I saw you once, and by the look in your eyes, I can tell you're a Batman. By the way, you're a terrible superhero if that's some random person can do that.
That was really hackneyed to me, too, by the way.
And, let's see, yeah, you know what? If Schumacher had done this, people would be screaming foul.
Yeah.
If a lesser filmmaker, if Brett Ratner had done this, people would be freaking out.
That's fair. It's Ratner.
Brett Ratner made a film half as good as any other film Nolan's ever made. People wouldn't. They know what they do.
Ratner.
Well, that's why Nolan can get away with this, because he's a brilliant filmmaker, and he's terrific. Brett Ratner is not. But if they did the same exact thing, it would be more noticeable.
But the difference is he would do the same exact thing in a bad movie, and it would be completely and utterly pointless. All the way, he would have zero purpose.
No, it's just pointless in a good movie.
I just want to say a quick thing. Actually, Brett Ratner is the CEO of the college I was attending, he visited the Los Angeles campus not too long ago, and I was standing there in a Cyclops t-shirt, and I was just ready to throw red paint on him. But back to John Blake. It's interesting. I have done videos in the past where I have just ripped apart the fact that they've turned one of my favorite characters in Barbara Gordon into whatever the hell they did in Batman and Robin. Now, I am an even bigger fan of Dick Grayson, and I gotta say, what they did with John Blake didn't bother. I feel like if he didn't have as much screen time, I wonder if him taking the mantle of Batman would have meant as much at the end. But I thought the Robin thing was okay. I was a little disappointed that he wasn't just straight up Dick Grayson, though, because I am a huge fan of that character, and I feel like I should be angrier about it than I am, but for whatever reason, maybe it was because, my cinema, applauded at the Robin line, actually. So maybe if I had a different theater experience, maybe I would have been like, I don't know if I like that. But at the time, it was like, I was just crying because of what Gordon figuring out that he was Bruce Wayne and Batman actually dying, and Michael Caine's performance is just so wow in this. And so when she was like, you should use your full name, Robin, everyone was just like, ah. So it didn't bother me.
You know, I made that same noise, but without the hand clap.
You have no soul.
No. King, let me say this. You said earlier that what's great about this movie is that it doesn't spoon feed things. I think the Robin name drop is spoon feed.
No. I will agree with you on that.
Let me explain to you what I don't like about it. It is. I think it's pandering. And I think it's pandering to the fans that always wanted Robin somehow in this franchise. And here's the deal. They did Robin in a really subtle way, and I actually kind of liked it. Now, I'm with Manos. I didn't love the idea of John Blake because I felt like he sucked out all the screen time I wanted for other characters I cared about. Did we have to lose Alfred for most of the movie? But it was handled well. I just didn't want it in this movie. You see what I'm saying? I mean, and I'm also with Manos when I say that Levitt did a great job with it. It's just it came off so much to me as Nolan really wanted to work with Levitt again, so he made up a character to throw in the movie somehow, and then he conveniently gets away with it because people kind of wanted Robin. And so the thing is, he's such a smart filmmaker that he can make it look like he did it on purpose. That's the thing, is that it's like, I really feel like he just wanted to work with Levitt again, so he got him in there. But like, I'm not on about that as much as I am the Robin name drop thing, because I didn't need it. I mean, I, as a Batman fan, was in the audience going, oh, this is kind of clever. This is how he's doing Robin in this universe. Then they did the name drop. I didn't need that.
I will agree that the name drop thing is
lame.
It's not lame.
Yeah, it is.
It's just, you have if you say it's lame, you have no soul and you kill babies.
What?
Well, that's true,
what?
but that's still not my point.
No. Seriously though, I didn't find it lame. I do agree that he's just kind of there to say, here, fanboys, you have something you've always wanted. But I did really like the character, and I thought he added a lot. He had a great character arc throughout the film, and he was there because he's in this world with a Gordon and a Batman. You know, we have a Batman who's simply waiting to get back in the game, and he's getting in the game not to save Gotham, but to die. And we have a Gordon who has this weight on his shoulder because he knows that he told a lie that he thinks is actually doing more harm than good, and he can't bring himself to be the same Gordon he once was, the one that really cared about Gotham, the one that wanted to save it.
King?
And, you know,
Okay.
this Gordon...
I have a question for
Levitt
King when you're done.
Yeah, wait, let me interject something really quick, because this is cool and constructive. This is one of the places in the film that I feel like you can actually look at it from a lot of different ways. And when you say, and so this is not a criticism of the movie at all, but when you say that he goes out and becomes Batman again to die, I don't see it that way. And I think the movie actually does a really good job of allowing people to have different perspectives on this. Because I think it's more that he doesn't mind if he does die. I mean, here's a guy that for the last 6 years or so has had no purpose, because everything he's tried has failed. I mean, he lost his girlfriend, and he lost he doesn't get to be the heroic Batman anymore. Everybody hates him as Batman, so he says, okay, I'm going to try to save the world in another way. Then he tries and by the way, I like this part quite a bit. He tries the clean energy machine, and then just when he's ready to unveil it to the world, somebody publishes a paper that tells you how you can use that very thing as a weapon, and he goes, crap, now I can't put that out because that could be bad. So then he has to put that to rest and pretend like it doesn't work. And so like this guy has just been sitting around hopelessly not being able to be productive.
Shooting arrows.
Yeah, and so I don't really think that he has a death wish. I think that he just jumps at the chance to finally get to make a difference again, but he's so broken. I mean, it's cool because he's like emotionally broken before he's physically broken by Bane. That's why I'm glad that we do get the back break in here, even though it gets fixed too easily for my taste. But like
that later.
Yeah, we will. He's emotionally broken, and then he's back in the game. But he's different. He's not like he was in Dark Knight. He doesn't have the chutzpah he had. I mean, I complained earlier that I didn't like the initial premise of him, being not Batman for 8 years. And the more I talk about it, the more I like it more. I mean, I'm just saying that I'm not sure if I agree with your point that he went out to die.
Well, I'll explain why I think that, one part is I really do agree with Alfred that because he didn't truly move on with his life. He's still, I said earlier this is an emotional sequel to The Dark Knight because everyone's still dealing with what happened there. The Joker, what happened with Ben, everything is still emotionally affecting them because they almost lost. The soul of Gotham was almost destroyed, and it would have been Batman and Gordon's fault had they not been able to save it, even if they had to tell a lie to do it, which is a big theme in this movie, truth and lie, and, when it's okay to lie and when it's not, and all the other stuff. But anyway, I feel like he was going out to die because he felt like he had no purpose. He felt like he had no one else, and even though there's this guy that he can go out and fight, it's like you say, he doesn't have that same feel that he did in The Dark Knight, where he felt that he couldn't have limitations. Here he's like, I guess I found what my limits are, and I have nothing else to do. That's kind of why I felt like he was really actually going to go out there and die, and it wasn't until he got sent down to that pit, which is clearly a metaphor for the Lazarus pit, because he came out stronger than he was before. He's just kind of down there, and he's seeing Gotham be destroyed.
But he didn't come out more psychotic, and that bothers me. He should have been a little crazy in the head if he was. No, I'm kidding.
So he comes out stronger, and because he sees Gotham being destroyed, and there's no one there, the police can't do their job, which was a big part of why he stopped being Batman. There's no one that can stop this nuke because the only person in the world that could stop it was killed. It's literally a helpless place, and he feels helpless down there, and then he wakes up again, and he has to re-become Batman. And it's at that point where he finally realized that he has to move on with his life and find a purpose that goes beyond simply saving the world or saving Gotham. Because he finally became the symbol that was able to bring Gotham out of apathy like he always wanted to be.
Well, I think what he does, I think picks up maybe from a theme in Dark Knight where they talk about how you either die a hero or live to become, a villain, and he figures out how to die a hero and still not die.
That's true.
Which is that, I've complained that parts of this movie kind of prove that it's Nolan's Batman and not, what I think is Batman.
Yeah.
But that's Batman right there. That's classic Batman move.
I want to touch on.
Do you think it is faking his own death like that?
He did it in Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, and you're right, and there is some Dark Knight Returns in this, clearly. Yeah. Especially the Batman who hasn't been Batman for a long time and comes back. I think part of what I don't love about that is just the fact that he doesn't get to be Batman long enough.
I know. Well, that kind of bugs me.
I have a really tough time with that.
And
it's a case thing, but I have a tough time with that.
I don't accept the argument that he made Gotham all squeaky clean and was awesome, so he was unnecessary. It's like, I don't buy that. I mean,
I'm not
saying. I'm not saying you are, King, but I've heard other people say that.
I have too, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, the Batman I know is more obsessed than that. I mean, he would find reasons to keep going. Oh, and I was thinking,
the Batman made a vow to Gotham.
Yeah, he made a vow to his parents. He made a vow to Gotham, and what? He just stopped. I don't know. That still kind of bugs me. I mean, it's his film, and he can do what he wants, and it's his version of Batman, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just a guy who likes Batman. But still, I don't know. It was just, on a personal level, it just, wasn't my favorite move. Now, if maybe I may suggest this. If we had seen a broken Batman after years of just being on his own without the police.
Yes.
And that maybe he's like thinking about giving up because like, man, I'm getting my butt kicked out there every night. And I have no cover and I have no Robin.
And everyone hates me regardless of all the great things I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that would have been a little more believable.
Well, I mean, the thing here was, you know, when you go back to Begins, he makes a speech to Alfred where he's like, I want to become a symbol to bring Gotham out of apathy, and, you know, he wasn't able to do that on his own. He had to, one of the big reasons why they had to cover up what Dent did was because Dent became that symbol. Because people loved Dent, and they followed Dent, and they believed in Harvey Dent. You know, and because of that, the people in Gotham were brought out of apathy, and they were willing to finally combat the crime that had ruled their city for so long. I don't think Batman made it squeaky clean. I think he just found a way without himself becoming a symbol, finding a symbol that, you know, Gotham could use to move past the crime that had controlled them as long as it has.
Kirk's been trying to say something. Go ahead, Vin.
That's cool. They do make the point, the mayor sort of says no city is without crime, but we're now, because of the Dent Act, without organized crime. It doesn't mean, like, when people are saying it's squeaky clean, like, there's clearly still crime. It's just that...
But that's why it bugs some of us that Batman's not there.
Sorry?
But that's why it bugs some of us that Batman's not still there, because there is still crime.
Yeah, he's not like the Punisher, where he's totally mob-focused. You know, he's crime-focused. That's a bigger net.
I understand that, but in Begins, it is stated that, you know, his main purpose is not... It's very different from the Batman that we all know personally, in that Batman, his thing is stop crime in general. This one is... get the people in Gotham to stop being cowards and to stop letting crime step all over them. That was his thing more than anything else.
I've got to ask the question that Eric would ask at this point, because this has been his big thing in all the phone calls we've had about this. Eric and I, by the way, on phone calls have reviewed this film no less than 9 times without recording it. We really should have been recording that. But anyway, what Eric would ask is okay, if Batman's whole deal was to, like you said, get people out of apathy and to make sure that there's no organized crime in Gotham. I mean, you got a couple things even right out the gate. There's the fact that people are talking about repealing the Dent Act, which seems like the thing keeping all of that at bay, which honestly I think is a bit too simplistic. But B, what about the fact that the Gothamites kind of show their true colors through the middle of the movie when Bane takes over, and there's a lot of looting and there's a lot of people siding with Bane, it looks like, and then you get to the end and you've got this city that's in shambles and Batman fakes his own death, and you got Blake who's going to carry on the mantle, but like I have a tough time buying that would be the place that he would stop. It's not like, I mean, Gotham is in way worse shape than it was at the beginning of the movie, and at the end of Dark Knight, he was willing to give up his reputation and everything just because they were afraid that the city might get super out of hand just because Dent died. And we leave off the trilogy with Gotham in way worse shape than it was at the end of Dark Knight.
I don't think it's in way worse shape. I think, physically, with the bridges and everything destroyed, physically it's in worse shape. But I think, symbolically, it's in a better position than it was at the end of The Dark Knight.
How do you figure?
Everyone's dead?
Like, where does that come from, though? I mean, like how is it in any way in better shape? I mean, like, you've got, like I said, the Gothamites kind of show their true colors. You get the sense that Gotham's holding on by a thread, really.
I felt at the end, like, when they did that montage in the end and they had the little Batman statue, I really felt like the city was, like, coming back to life. They have a new symbol, they have renewed hope, you know, because you see at the beginning of this film that there is a small amount of crime, but the city is mostly willing to combat it.
See, I didn't get that impression.
See, I totally got that's what I got.
But why? Because, like I said, you got that line about people wanting to repeal the Dent Act. It's almost like they're tired of things being okay.
Well,
Besides the fact that it's kind of scary anyway. I don't know. I don't like all that was really simplistic to me.
Well, here's what I would say about the people wanting to repeal the Dent Act are probably the same people that were getting paid off by the mob in The Dark Knight and in Batman Begins.
You could make that. Even Blake wasn't totally crazy about the Dent Act.
Yeah.
Well, I think
there was. I think there's some moral ambiguity to that law that isn't really explored too much.
And that's the reason I say that.
Are there people being thrown in jail and never paroled that maybe don't deserve to be in jail?
We're not told what crimes fall under that.
Which I think is his Nolan's own way of kind of giving a commentary on our current legal system and how we have the exact same thing going on in our country today, where we put a lot of people in jail. We don't know why half of them are in there, and it's overcrowding our prisons, and it's going to be a bad thing one day.
Okay, great. So he's doing social commentary about that. How is this a Gotham that no longer needs Batman?
Okay, I just want to make a point. I'm not sure if this is related to that question, Cap, but one of the big things is that the city finally had hope due to Harvey Dent being the symbol that Gotham needed, and that. And then when that is shattered, and the city finds out that for the past 8 years they've been locking up their criminals all based on a lie, as Ra's al Ghul says, like the only victory Batman achieved was based on a lie. And so that breaks Gotham, and Batman is not around for those, whole 5 months. And there's also the bomb that is going to go off.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the big things is that, Bane says, and I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this, the whole thing with Bane saying that, one of the Gothamites holds the detonator. I don't feel like
that's another thing that drives Eric crazy, because we can't figure out why he says that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I kind of always expected Bane to have it on him anyway, and Gordon and the police make this big deal of course he has it. He wouldn't just give it to someone else. Gotham's stupid for thinking that.
Yeah, and what's really funny is then it turns out that Talia's got it, and then Bane literally says, well, she's a citizen. Like she's a citizen of somewhere.
Well, actually, she says, although I'm not ordinary, I am a citizen.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh, yeah, okay. She says it. I wanted Bane to say it so that I could do a Bane voice.
You can still do it.
But it's hilarious. What I don't get is, because of course it's all a ruse. Everything Bane does is of course a ruse, because it's not a real revolution, of course. And so what I don't get is what exactly he's trying to get people to think with that, because really, would ordinary people really think that maybe an ordinary citizen would really blow up the city for no good reason? Why would anyone, if somebody actually held the detonator, why would they use it? I don't
my instinct on all this was he was trying to create confusion, and if you say a whole bunch of different things that maybe are contradictory or mysterious, then that can lead a whole bunch of people getting in arguments on YouTube about what he's trying to say with all the stuff he left out, or the stuff that doesn't really make sense.
I love how it's just on YouTube. That's great. Kirk, with what you just said, the idea that and we were talking, so other people may not have heard this, but the idea that it's supposed to be the same idea as the boats at the end of Dark Knight, I think is what you said. It's a different thing. That doesn't make any sense at all, because the thing with the two boats... I
didn't say it was the same, but I just said it's a similar ideal.
How is it similar, though? Because the person that would use it would also die.
Yes.
If they're in a refrigerator.
Maybe he wanted to, maybe he just wanted to create speculation and fear, and if you can fear and confuse people, you can control them better.
Yes, I agree with that. I just don't think that it's like the boats.
But my thing is, I don't think it's actually he said ordinary citizen, but clearly he has his own men in that city already. You know, it's not all the same people that he just brought with him on that plane. There are other people who are already in Gotham. So when he said ordinary citizen, he could just as easily be talking about one of his men who are in hiding.
No, I don't think so, because he's talking to a whole crowd of people at a football stadium.
Which is being televised.
And he basically says, one of you. I mean...
Yeah.
He comes out and says, one of you has it.
It's almost a Die Hard plot.
Yeah, except that it's actually not, because it turns out that he did. I'm not complaining that he didn't get it.
No, I mean, like, you know, he's pretending it's a terrorist act, and he has this other, you know, specific plan.
My point with the Joker and the detonators in the boats was more that the Joker gave the power to hundreds of people, or like thousands, or however many people they are actually able to fit on those boats.
Yes.
Gave someone the power to kill thousands of people. And in this case, Bane, you know, created this facade that he was giving this unsung hero the ability to kill, you know, millions of people. And
Could you please talk like that the rest of the review?
If you wish.
You almost sound like FDR when you talk.
But Bane is also...
The only thing we have to fear is a nuclear bomb!
Oh, God.
Well, I think of it, I really do think, and people might disagree with me on this, but Bane is just as quotable, in my opinion, as the Joker in this film. I think he has some awesome lines of dialogue.
Well, I think there are a lot of awesome lines of dialogue in here between Bane, Batman, and Catwoman. I mean, one of my favorite scenes in that movie is when Batman saves her, and he turns around and she disappears, and he's like, "So that's what that feels like." You know?
Hey, can we get to Catwoman?
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
We haven't talked about Catwoman for a while.
Let's talk about the best part of this film.
Yeah, we need to talk about Catwoman, and then, Manos, we need to talk about the back break.
Sure.
Okay. And I'll defend that, too.
Yeah.
That's our itinerary. Okay, Manos, go.
Well, I'd love to brag the fact that I did a video talking about the casting, and I told everybody, be cool. You know, she's not like someone who always plays a princess or something like that, like King mentioned earlier. She's an actress. Yeah. And Nolan's done this before, taking an actor that maybe wasn't the first choice and did something brilliant with them. So I don't know why so many people have no memory whatsoever of past films.
You know what I find funny?
And past castings. You can even make that case with Michael Keaton too. And I thought she was fantastic, and I am going to say that this is the best film version of Catwoman I've ever seen. Even versus the Bruce Timm animated series.
Okay, yeah.
Because I never thought I loved Adrienne Barbeau in the role of Catwoman, but I never particularly liked the direction her character was in that show. This was the comic book Catwoman. With the seedy past and the blonde little sidekick, and the wheeling and dealing and the grifting, and she has kind of the Julie Newmar costume, but this is clearly the Frank Miller, Darwin Cook kind of Catwoman that we love to see in the comics. I really dug the costume a lot, although I had split opinions on the heels, which I always think is stupid when I see on female characters. But at least they had a purpose. I will say that. Mm-hmm. But
was their purpose to give her a cool one-liner one time?
Yes, and
that was cool.
Isn't it weird that her comic book costume is more practical than her film costume?
Yeah, I was surprised. We're like, we can't give her actual cat ears, but by God, she's got heels.
Yeah. But that's my only minor complaint about her, except for the fact that she's underutilized. I think she could have been. And then going back to my John Blake complaints, it's like if you scoop him out of the movie, you got a whole bunch of scenes you could have with her and develop that character further. Because she's so cool, and she makes this film fun. I mean, this film is not fun. she comes in and she is like, she's exciting, she's funny. The first scene with Bruce is just amazing.
Could have that sort of comic relief.
Oh man, yeah.
Like, replace every Jar Jar Binks with an Anne Hathaway Catwoman, and you've got
done.
You've got at least a movie with a really cool comedy part. Like, and I'm not saying that she's just comic relief, but but she brings a lot of the levity that's in that movie.
Well, she has a lot of depth to her character.
She brings the levity to the movie. I mean,
so does Bane in places.
Yeah, he's kooky. I love his musical.
That's a lovely, lovely voice.
By the way, this has nothing to do with anything, but while we're making fun of Bane's voice again, and I'm sorry, that's mean. I do find it effective quite a bit, but outside of the context of the movie, it's just fun to do, isn't it?
No, it is.
There's this, there was a comment, I gotta mention this, Coolio Vids, we love Coolio Vids. Coolio Vids left a comment on our podcast last week that Vince and I did, where we did this podcast that was it had nothing to do with Dark Knight Rises. We didn't bring up Rises at all, anywhere. But we kept breaking into Bane impressions. and we at no point even mentioned Bane or said we just did them. Because this was the first time he and I had met since we saw the movie. So we talked about it together for like an hour, and then we started shooting this podcast. And before that, we'd been doing Bane impressions. So Coolio Vince leaves this comment that says, "Getting off topic with no survivors."
Oh,
I
God.
like saying, "Take control."
Yeah. First I want to say, the film is beautifully depressing. That is one thing I really loved about this. It is it is so depressing in such a wonderfully character-driven way. Because you can do depressing wrong, but here they did depressing really right. But back to Catwoman, she is so much fun, and she had a lot of depth. And what I really appreciated was Anne Hathaway is such a good actress, and Christopher Nolan is such a good director that he knows that you don't always have to give someone dialogue to show them having a character arc. Because in all the chaos of everything happening, Anne Hathaway has this great line in the film where she's like, "A storm is coming," which parallels to when Batman said it in Begins. And, she says she's adaptable, but when it finally happens, when the storm finally hits, it's not what she wanted, not at all. And she's not enjoying herself in any way. And part of that's because, she finds out that one of the people that she thinks is a rich, stuck-up jerk is Bruce Wayne, and he ends up being Batman. And she's like, "Oh, well, I was wrong about that."
Oh, so you're a rich, stuck-up jerk with bat ears. Okay. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Then she looks at everything going on. She sees the rich people being taken out of their homes and the poor people just kind of basking in the glory of their newfound riches, if you will. And it's not what she wanted at all. It's what she thought she wanted. And she even had that line where she said, "Well, maybe I like things the way they are." But you can even look on her face and know that she really doesn't. And Chris Nolan and Anne Hathaway are really good at just, showing you things without telling you exactly there's no line dialogue where she's like, "I really don't like what's happening here. I feel depressed. This isn't fun anymore. I'm sad. Meow."
Why are you making it sound like a Zoloft commercial?
Stop reading from a review.
Can I just say, I really love the fact that she isn't surrounded by actual cats in this movie.
There are no cat kisses.
And she doesn't have 9 lives cat powers.
No one's
Or a tail or anything.
No one
I just love
she
the fact
as a light.
Like in every other, version of Selina Kyle, whether it's the animated series or Batman Returns or the 60s show or whatever, she's always surrounded, or she at least has a cat. I was glad that there weren't any cats there. It always seems so cliche. Because she's never actually called Catwoman in this movie. Like there's those headlines at the show where it's like, "Cat burglar strikes again" and stuff. But like she's never named Catwoman, and I'm okay with that.
And that's the subtlety that John Blake needed. I still agree with you on the whole.
There is a cut scene where she is at the DMV and her full name is Selina Catwoman Kyle.
Oh, hey, Manos. Speaking of, because I know we're going backwards, but speaking of the whole John Blake thing again,
Yeah.
would you mind going on? I know you said this in your own video, but I want you to say it here because I think it's really interesting. Would you mind once again going on record to say who you wanted his name to be?
Oh yeah, I was going to bring that up. I often thought, how cool would it have been? I mean, forget this like mysterious thing that turns out at the end as a twist. I'm not sure why that's important. For Talia, yes, but for this, that was pointless. Oh, how cool would it have been if, let's say, let's do a twist with it. Let's say he's constantly referred to as officer and then detective through the film, and everybody knows who he is, so they don't really like say his name. And then at the end, when that clerk calls his name, she would say, Terry McGinnis?
I thought you'd say that.
How cool would that have been?
That would have been awesome.
It would have, because, hey, he's not Robin, he's becoming Batman at the end.
Actually, Cap had a very different opinion on that.
What's that?
You have a very different opinion on that. You say that you have
I
to
do?
Be, yeah, you told... Okay, you called me...
Oh,
like,
yeah, I do! Okay, hold on. I just remembered what my opinion is. Okay, no, I forgot what we were talking about with that. Yes. No, thank you. You're right. And now I have located my opinion.
Yeah. Hey, Cap, remember that opinion of yours that you're going to give me $1,000?
Hold on. I can't find that opinion anywhere. Okay, here's what I was telling King. King and I actually talked about this on the phone a couple weeks ago because, well, he threatened to burn down my house, so I called him up, and I was like, King, look, it's not that I hated the movie, I just had a few things I was disappointed with. And we had a nice conversation, and then he stopped threatening to blow up my house, so that was good. Anyway, what I told him was, I said, here's the thing. The idea that he's becoming, that he's kind of, like, sort of becoming a Robin-type character is totally cool with me. And the idea that he's gonna take up the mantle is okay too. But I never got the idea that he would really put on a bat suit and become the next Batman. And I also kind of resist Bruce Wayne's line earlier on in the movie, and anyone could be Batman. Kind of like anyone can cook. I was a little bugged by that because I felt like that was a little bit against Batman Begins because Bruce Wayne in this franchise, in this continuity, is so much about being scared of bats and making that primal fear a fear that other people have that they didn't have before. At the end of the movie, John Blake is standing up in the Batcave, and it's a cool scene. He's standing up in the Batcave in the same pose that Bruce Wayne did toward the beginning of Begins, but he cracks a hint of a smile. And any character that is not scared out of his mind of bats in this continuity can't be Batman.
Yeah. Which I think is a really interesting point, but, I mean, my thing on that whole anyone could be Batman, I thought that, I just kind of felt that was him saying, anyone can be a symbol for Gotham.
Okay, great, yeah, sure.
I mean, that's how I took that.
So that's what I'm saying. I don't think taking up the Batman mantle means necessarily putting on a bat costume. I think what he does is he takes the thing and he makes it his own. Maybe he becomes something like Robin, maybe it's something like Nightwing, but I think whatever it is, it's in a more lighthearted spirit than Batman.
Yeah.
That's that character. He is much more like Tim Drake than he is like Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. And he had that great line of dialogue between the two of them where they're like, John Blake's like, I don't need a mask. And Batman's like, the mask is there to protect the people you care about.
Now, to Manos' point, Terry McGinnis was a lighter Batman. So, I mean, like, he still could have been called Terry McGinnis. I just think that in this particular continuity, I think you need to be scared of bats to be Batman.
Well, Terry McGinnis wasn't really scared of bats. He just kind of took the job because...
Continuity.
Yeah, but I just mean in this continuity, yeah.
It's interesting. I have a fan trailer on my channel for a Nightwing film, and it's funny the amount of views it's gotten since Rises. And I've had so many comments saying you should do one with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I feel like this movie, in some ways, provides people with false hope that there's going to be, or not hope necessarily, but this false idea that there's going to be more in this continuity with Joseph Gordon-Levitt as whether it's Nightwing or Batman or Robin or whatever.
That makes them weird.
Well,
because this movie is all about this is Nolan and he doesn't want to make anymore.
Yeah.
No, exactly. I agree. I'm just saying, like, it's interesting. There are so many people who are, like, even people saying that they want a Catwoman spin-off. And it's like, you are not gonna get this. Like, it's been said right from the beginning.
Catwoman could happen if another director took it. There's been talk about that lately.
Well,
I would be so against that if she
Nolan said he was interested in it?
Yeah, Nolan said that he was interested in doing Catwoman, a Catwoman film, and Anne Hathaway's like, well, if Nolan does actually want to do it, I'm up for it.
Weird.
It'd be interesting to see him do a film.
But...
Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you were going. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, like, I've also read Nolan say that, but to me, that kind of, like, the whole ending where Bruce is in Italy with Selina Kyle, like, that would kind of ruin that, unless it's a prequel to Rises. Like,
that's what people talked about, yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, that would be really weird if she became Catwoman while living with Bruce in Italy, or she left Bruce in Italy to go back to Gotham to be Catwoman. Like,
what's nice, of course, is that they've got a whole 8-year gap where they could do anything they wanted to with her.
No, that's true, yeah.
I'm not saying I necessarily want that. I'm a little bit bugged if no one is interested in doing anything else in this continuity, just because one of the things I resisted about it was that I felt like he had to kind of finagle... And I'm going to get flack for this, but I feel like he had to kind of finagle a movie where a Batman that in the previous 2 films looked like he would be Batman for a lot of years shuts down at the end just so that he can definitively say, I'm done, I don't want to do anymore. And I feel like the idea of trilogy was kind of shoved down our throats when the first 2 clearly were not building in a trilogy. Really, the way it's been advertised... The end of Nolan's epic trilogy. It almost wasn't even an epic. It almost wasn't even a trilogy. Nolan wasn't even sure at the end of Dark Knight after we lost Ledger that he even wanted to make another one because he couldn't do the movie he wanted to make.
They weren't saying it was the end of a trilogy. They said it was the end of the Dark Knight legend. I believe is what they were saying.
That's not true. I've seen lots of advertising that says the Dark Knight trilogy, and understand that I went to a showing. Of the 3 films together called The Dark Knight Trilogy.
Yeah.
No, there was definitely that. But there's definitely that. I'm just saying, like, they never sort of said that this was, like, prior to that, like the AMC screenings and stuff like that, they weren't calling it The Dark Knight Trilogy, or the end of The Dark Knight Trilogy, I should say. It was the end of the legend that Nolan has created.
Yeah.
The term trilogy didn't come around. I mean, people were calling it that because that's what it is, but the term trilogy wasn't around until, like, not too long before the movie was coming out because of the AMC marathon.
It really it being the 3rd one and being the last one, this movie tries to treat itself as if it was always a trilogy, and I really resist that because it's not. It's not a proper trilogy. It's not a 3-act. It's not a 3-act story. It's 3 separate stories, and so I really do kind of resist that idea, and not just people calling it that, but the idea within the movie that it really kind of treats it like, in retrospect, now that's what it is.
Well, I think it's important to note that at the end of. After he made Begins, Nolan was like, I don't even know if I want to do another one.
That's right.
So it's really important to note that the idea of it being The Dark Knight being a sequel isn't entirely true either. He made it that way, though. Nolan always said that he's not going to make another film unless he had a good story to tell. He had a good story with Dark Knight, and then here he had another story, and in this one he managed to wrap everything up in a way that he wouldn't have to make any more after this, because, he's always been like, how many great sequels are there and how many great trilogies are there? You can keep making something, but eventually it's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse, and we want to end up on a high note. So that's why... No, go ahead.
Sorry, go.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Since nobody can decide whose turn it is to talk. Does anybody else... Okay, let me ask you this. Just answer honestly. Whether you loved the ending or not, and when I say ending, I mean the fact that Bruce Wayne fakes his own death and quits being Batman definitively. Does anybody here feel like you personally needed this movie to end in such a definitive kind of way?
I did... mainly because I did not want anyone else to touch this franchise. Like, That's honestly my thing is I didn't want anyone, after Nolan was done, after Christian Bale was done, I wanted them to end it in a way, you know, I would, like, even if they actually did kill Batman, I would have been like, hey, at least they can't touch the franchise. You know, that would be my attitude.
Don't you hate that we have to think about it that politically? You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't it be great if Nolan could just say, look, I'm done with this. Warners, would you please reboot, because these were my stories and I don't want anybody else to touch them? But you're right, it doesn't work that way.
Now, we live in a Hollywood-based world where they're like, oh, this made money? Let's just keep going with it and milk this cow dry. That's the attitude they bring to it.
I don't think I exactly needed it to end, as in, you know, this is the end, my only friend. But, like, it was, but in all honesty, like, I feel like I actually really loved the ending. I will say that, but I didn't need it to be like, this is the end and no one can touch this anymore. I don't want anyone to touch it anymore, that's for sure. And I agree with King in the sense that it's, you know, Hollywood could have found another way to, like, there was that random talk a year ago or something where they wanted to do a Batman TV series set in the Nolanverse or something. Like, of course that was, you know, people making stuff up. But, like, there would always be that thing of, you know, we could do more with the franchise. And you look at, like, other superhero franchises, like, I think X-Men is the best example of, you know, this is, everything has been rebooted except for the X-Men, and, you know, it's gone on for over a decade now, and we've got a movie coming out next year, and a movie shooting in January. Like, how much longer, with all its continuity errors, can this thing go on? And it's like, I feel like if Nolan didn't wrap it up as, you know, with a nice bow, people still would have, you know, expected there to be more, or, you know, pandered for there to be more, which is what I was going to say earlier with people are expecting there to be more with Gordon Levitt, which I definitely don't want to see. Sorry?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, it's because they want more, you know. When you make something this good, you're not going to want it to end. You know, this is one of those rare things where, you know, not only are the hardcore fans that will actually go out and read the comics are super in love with it, but the average everyday moviegoer who's just like walking in theater like, what's here today, are coming in and they're really, really enjoying it. I will say this about the ending. I was talking with Eric on the phone before the film came out, and I'm like, if they make it so that everybody dies, I'd be okay with that too. Just as long as Hollywood can't touch it. Oh no, seriously, like, Alfred could have died, Lucius could have died. It could have just been an ending where everyone died, and I would have been like...
Are you kidding? I mean, there's been other places where I've wanted Alfred to die. Batman and Robin. I mean, that would have been, like, the one moment of, like, actual humanity in that film, where you've got this character who the whole way through, he's dying, he's at the end, oh, he's okay.
Yep.
Because that Freeze had in his wrist.
Yeah. He just carries that around. In my review, I said, I mean, you don't know where that's been, you know? I'm not sure you want to use that.
How old is that thing?
You know, is it sad that because of some of the characters that were used in this movie and stuff, that we feel the need to keep going back to Batman and Robin of all things? Like, not only did they bring Bane in, and, you know, thankfully, obviously, well, he could have. I think it would have been hard to have done him worse than Batman and Robin.
You could.
But what is funny, and this is not a slight against the movie, but this is just an amusing coincidence, is the fact that he does walk around with a bomb.
Yes.
I mean, he doesn't say bomb and drop them, but he does walk around with a bomb. And he also happens to be, it turns out at the end, completely subservient to a female villain.
Ba-ba-dum-ba-dum.
I always felt their relationship was more of a father-daughter relationship than a subservient one.
Oh, can we say? Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that, King. And we haven't talked at all about Talia and Bane.
Excuse me, may I interject?
Yeah.
No. Okay.
Could I answer the question that you posed to everybody?
Yeah, sure. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot I posed the question. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. What was the question again?
I don't know. I can't find it.
What about were you happy with the ending? And
was I happy with the ending? I was fine with the ending. I think it's open-ended enough, but and it ends like it does. I didn't really need Batman to die, frankly, and actually was hoping he wouldn't die. I was not going, oh, I hope he dies so no one can touch this. As just a longtime Batman fan, I'm not like eager to see him die in a story. Just so I can, claim this movie trilogy as mine. But I think it ends well enough. And I think it opens open-ended enough. Like, if the studio really wanted to say, the heck with Nolan, we're going to keep going with Blake Man, they could if they wanted to, or if they do a Catwoman movie.
I want that to be a meme now.
Which would be a good prequel, by the way. So yeah, I thought it ended just fine. I will say it's interesting that, Alfred and Bruce and Catwoman all run into that same kind of cafe that he was having these little fantasies about.
Can we talk about that for a second? Can we talk about that for a second? Because I've heard this. I want to hear what you guys think of this, because I have my own view. But a lot of people on the internet have been making the question of, could that have actually just been another fantasy?
No.
Well, no, hold on. He brings up a good point, because if you watch the film again, you will notice that there's a spinning top on Alfred's table.
Okay, King, we gotta nip this real quick, because this isn't, I'm sorry, I don't want to be a jerk about it, but it's not worth talking about. It doesn't make any sense.
And let's talk about it!
No, it's not. Let's just move on. The reason it can't possibly be in his head, first of all, you said, can it be just another fantasy? The thing is, it was never a fantasy in the first place. When they showed us that, I mean, he talks about he has this fantasy where what he'd like to see, but what we see is an actual real flashback where he's sitting in that cafe and he sees what he thinks is Bruce, and then the guy turns around and it's not Bruce. There was never a fantasy we saw on screen. It was always flashback. And so when you get to the end, you can't begin to speculate about this because Alfred doesn't even know that those two were doing anything with each other.
Exactly, yeah.
There's no reason that Alfred, if it was a fantasy, would think, oh, Bruce got together with Selina Kyle. There's no reason he'd think that.
There's also the notion of who fixed the bat signal and why was the autopilot fixed if he wasn't going to use it.
And how did the bat plane not explode in the nuclear explosion?
Oh, you know what? No, Kirk's got a really good point, though. What would be the point of mentioning the autopilot if he was dead?
Yeah.
That's all going into letting us know that he's still alive.
That's the thing.
No, I just want to hear your guys' opinion on it, because people have been mentioning all over the internet, so I just want
Okay, well, my opinion is that those are the facts.
No, I agree. Like, I even one of my roommates posed that question. He's like, oh, the ending's like Inception. I was like, no, it's not. But, yeah.
That's not even a matter of opinion. It's not like Inception. It's not the same thing.
It's like Inception because the same guy directed it.
Well, it's like Inception because it has the entire cast of Inception in it.
No, Leonardo wasn't there.
Would have liked to have seen Leonardo as something in the Bat universe, actually.
He could have been Bane.
Yeah, Bane. We find out Alfred has some long-lost son that needs to take away a whole lot of screen time from him. So we were talking. So you guys each talked about the ending. I guess I'll throw this out really quick. I actually, I gotta say, I did resist the ending quite a bit when I first saw it. I think it works fine for the movie that was made. What I have a tough time with, and again, this is just a personal thing, what I have a tough time with is that in both Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, I thought I was watching the young Batman. And so that we can have a trilogy that gets capped off at the end, we fast forwarded 8 years, but within those 8 years, we didn't still have Batman being Batman. So he's still the young Batman. I mean, he got older, but he's still going on one more mission, but not like the last out of a whole bunch, just the last out of like 3 or 4. And I just resisted that. I wanted to see what the Christian Bale Batman would be like with a lot of mileage behind him.
Well, I do have to say that, in Begin, we are told that he was gone for 7 years training. So that 7 years, you do 7 years plus the 2 that he was Batman before Rise. He's spending, 9 years building his body for this mission, putting himself through a lot of pain, going through a lot of prisons, underground criminal activity. He's probably already pretty worn out by the time he becomes Batman.
I'm not saying that it doesn't make sense realistically. Okay. I'm saying that thematically, I felt like Nolan was building, like Manos was saying earlier, was building something closer to the comic book Batman, especially when you get lines in Dark Knight like the Joker saying, you and I are going to be doing this forever, and Rachel saying that you'll never have a point where you no longer need Batman. I'm not saying that those make this movie contradictory. I'm saying that it was moving to a place that clearly was not this.
Well, I mean, I do have to say that the Heath Ledger thing dying really did screw up a lot of Nolan's plans, because he did have more
That's sad.
plans.
I wish we'd gotten to see that movie.
Because I think this was his secondary movie. I think that he had to reformulate an entire story to work without Ledger. And
not secondary like he had a backup plan. I mean, he had to figure this out from scratch.
So.
Yeah, and also, it's interesting with no Ledger, like, obviously it's not mentioned in anything like that, and I didn't think that was necessarily necessary, but, it wasn't like, why the hell didn't they mention the Joker? But it was, it's funny in the sense that this is so much of a sequel to Begins with, there's so much Ra's al Ghul in this and that. But also, Harvey Dent has a really big presence in this as well. I actually don't know the point I was going to make, so someone jump in.
Well, I was just going to say that, earlier I mentioned that it's a narrative, it's more in a narrative aspect connected to Begins, but emotionally it's very connected to Dark Knight. Which I find
it's connected to a single idea of the Dark Knight. The problem is, and I feel the need to say this because this is what Eric would say, and he's not here, so I'm going to make Eric's point for him. What Eric always says when people say that is it opens with people talking about Harvey Dent, and they talk about him all the way all around the movie, but a lot of what the Joker was dealing with was this idea of freaks, and we get a lot of the idea of freaks in Begins also, and he has that line where he's talking about, the rate that Gotham citizens are losing their minds. And you could say, oh, well, Gotham kind of fixed itself because of Dent. But here's the thing. That solved organized crime. Why would that necessarily make fewer people go crazy, or make all the people who are crazy not be crazy anymore? Where are those people? Where is Zaz? Where is Arkham? Did Arkham?
Yeah, where is Arkham?
We don't know. And so the thing is, you've got all these people in Blackgate. You get the sense, and this is where I get off saying that it's oversimplified. You get the sense that the only the only criminals left are the guys in Blackgate, and none of them seem psychotic. What happened to that theme? So all I'm saying is, yeah, Harvey Dent is a big deal in Dark Knight Rises, but they dropped an entire theme that ran through the first two movies.
No, they had Scarecrow there. They wasn't entirely dropped.
That's cameo. That's not dealing with the issues that were dealt with in those movies. I'm sorry. Maybe that was a joke. I've had other people actually. I'm sorry. I've had people actually throw that at me like it's an actual argument. And that's just silly to me. But where is that? I want to see those guys. I want to see those villains. What Eric likes to say is he figures that realistically, or at least relatively realistically, Bruce Wayne would still have to remain Batman, even being hunted down by the cops, just because there would still be psychotics that needed to be put away.
Yeah.
Isn't there that notion at the end of The Dark Knight, though, that not everyone is ugly as Joker? Isn't that kind of the point that Batman makes?
That was a big point that was made at the end of The Dark Knight. And
not
but
everyone.
I don't see how that's
Where were all the psychotics that were in the beginning of that were in Begins? It's not like that line just suddenly makes those people go away.
Well, I think it's important to note that there aren't as many psychotics as we probably think there are, because Scarecrow isn't turning people insane.
That is a good point. I appreciate that.
A lot of people,
right.
Scarecrow is putting people in Arkham to protect Carmine Falcone, to protect his men.
Or my macaroni, yes.
Yeah. So, but all those guys, they're not crazy. They're just criminals who are being put in this crazy house to protect them from the real law. And then once the mob's taken out and there's no more Scarecrow, well, where are you going to put the non-crazy people that were put in the crazy house? You're going to put them in jail.
One of my big criticisms about The Dark Knight was at the end of Begins, there's this big teaser of, we haven't picked up Crane or half the inmates of Arkham that he freed.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what happened to all those people in The Dark Knight? I mean,
in between films, they got arrested.
But you see what I'm saying, Kirk?
They leave the Narrows broken, supposedly, and that is never addressed again in Dark Knight. So I don't mind it not being. But it's even
worse in Rises because the theme is gone.
Mm.
Yes, but it's also 8 years later.
Well, it's not just that, but I mean, it's very much, I mentioned it earlier, it's a different kind of movie in that the first two were crime films, and this one's far more of a war kind of movie.
That's fine, but it still has to pick up those threads because you can't totally have your cake and eat it and eat it too. And I've had people say, "Well, look, you're criticizing it too much because you're comparing it to the other two movies." And I'm like, it's a movie that you can't watch without the other two, and it's asking me to, so that's not fair.
But it does carry a lot of themes from the other two movies throughout.
Yeah, but it drops some.
But The Dark Knight drops some themes from Begins. I mean, each film each film has its own kind of theme that's making its own kind of statement. They're not 100%, not every single theme it
well, you don't have
throughout.
to have the same, well, to if you have a certain storyline, the theme of your storyline, what you're trying to say with your characters and what your basic story is about, it's okay if it runs through different story types, like crime films, war films. With superhero stories, we kind of expect that.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens with a comic book. I mean, pick up a Batman comic, and you'll have crime stories, and then he'll be fighting on the moon with Superman, and then back to whatever.
Well, that happened in the 8 years. That's how he hurt his leg.
That would be cool. I'd like to see that.
But Manos, here's where I get off saying that shouldn't have been dropped. I totally agree that the different movies are doing different things, absolutely. But here's the thing: this is a franchise.
Yeah.
One of the things that it has consistently been about, at least in Begins and Dark Knight, is the relationship, and it's about a lot of other things too, but the relationship between fear and insanity. Well, Dark Knight Rises has fear, forgets all about insanity.
Well, I think it's more of a relationship between Batman and his villains, and that, there's that whole Nietzschean idea of you look deep enough into the abyss, what's going to be staring back at you.
Yeah, that's there too.
But I'm saying that's the two main things I noticed throughout the trilogy is you have that where you have Batman, and anyone who's his enemy is a direct foil to who he is, in one way or another. If he were to cross the line, that's who he'd be. He'd be Ra's, he'd be Bane, he'd be Joker, he'd be Talia.
That's one of the things that I found difficult about Bane, though, was that Bane didn't have his own philosophy like the other two did. And one of the things that was fun about his villains in Begins and Dark Knight is that you got to see the argument between Batman's philosophy and their philosophy. Didn't really have that with Bane.
Yeah, Bane was almost...
No, go ahead.
No, that's okay. No, I'm just going to say that Bane was almost, if you can make this comparison at all, is Bane is to Darth Vader in the same way that Darth Vader is, Palpatine's, number one guy.
Yeah, sure.
He's the guy with the scary mask that goes out and busts some heads and makes sure, he means business.
Yeah.
And then has really sympathetic puppy dog eyes at the end when he gets beaten.
Yeah, I know.
Both of them.
They do actually have that. My thing with
and they're
Bane,
both bald.
Well, I think in The Dark Knight Rises, Batman has very different answers to different people. With Catwoman and Bane, there's that whole rich versus poor mentality, and he answers it both. He gives a literal answer, a verbal answer to Catwoman, but he gives a symbolic answer to Bane, which really ends up being a symbolic answer to Talia, because there's that whole scene where he's in a pit, and the guy goes, you can't make the leap because you come from prosperity. He was born in the abyss, and that's why he was able to rise up.
Forget the fact that he was jumping buildings for 2 movies. There's
that, and then there's the whole other idea of that carried very much from Begins, where you can't have vengeance. Vengeance will end up destroying you, and in a conquest for vengeance, vengeance led to both Bane and Talia's demise. And
and all of that is fine. I find what the vengeance is about to be too thin. And that's my big complaint against the Talia idea. And the reason that I was loving Bane all the way through the movie until I got to the end and found out that he was simpler than I thought he was. What's difficult for me about Talia is that she, as I keep saying, a single line of dialogue tells us what her whole motivation is. And she literally says, I was angry with my father till you killed him. She had more reason to get revenge on her father than she did Batman. But then he dies, and now she has to and now she has to continue his work. That could have worked, but it is not explained. Why is that? Is it like a
we don't have time?
Is it, yeah, exactly. But is it a society thing? Is it a cultural thing? Because I had this argument with my wife, and that's what she said. She was like, well, it's a cultural thing. It's that in their culture, that's what you would do. And I'm like, nobody told me that.
But my thing
Where is that?
Let me ask you this.
Yeah, go ahead, Manos.
Maybe if they had introduced the plot twist earlier in the film,
Well, they could have had time to develop it.
Yeah, that maybe by the time that the third act is about to start, that we find out that Talia's the mastermind.
Again, I still think that a lot of this has to do with things that were cut out. I think that Nolan is a smarter storyteller than that, and I don't think that he would have just like snapped his fingers and went, that's the motivation. I don't think he was able to take the time for whatever reason to really explore it, and I needed that. Because the thing about it is, Talia's not a character I cared about. One thing that didn't help, of course, is the fact that I actually called her really early on in the movie. I was like, oh, that's Talia. And then they treated it as such a big reveal. I was like, I got it. It's Talia.
And I do think if you don't know anything about the comics, I think that is
it's a better reveal.
Because here's the thing. From her casting, I thought it was Talia.
Yeah, me too.
And
so did in the whole universe. In fact, she went on record and lied and said, nope, I'm not Talia.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
What really didn't help is when the actress who played young Talia al Ghul was like, I'm playing young Talia al Ghul, but don't tell anyone I told you.
Don't tell anyone I told you.
It was funny, before the big reveal, I remember sitting there like maybe 2 minutes when he goes to fight Bane. I remember sitting there thinking, man, she hasn't become Talia yet. Maybe she isn't Talia. And then
I was thinking that too.
Then she stabs him. It's like, okay, finally.
As a comic book fan, you're kind of expecting Talia to be in this movie. I mean, she's the obvious choice. But here's the thing. I feel like the movie takes enough ungrounded liberties that are a little bit different from McGinnis and Dark Knight, and not to a crazy place. I mean, honestly, I did feel a lot better about certain things that I thought were big plot holes the second time I saw them, even though I still hate that Bruce Wayne shows up out of nowhere. But,
no soul.
Yeah, because I have no soul.
Yeah, you have no soul.
Yeah.
Obviously,
but here's the thing.
You have a problem with the logic.
I would have preferred the actual real Lazarus pit. I would have preferred actual Ra's al Ghul comes back at the end, and it turns out he's behind everything. You know why you can do that as fast as you did Talia? Because we're expected to have seen the first two movies, and that's a character I already care about.
I was disappointed about his little vision. And they
already got the actor. Why the heck not? You know what Eric said? Again, I feel the need to say things Eric said because he's not here.
Yeah.
Eric said, wouldn't it have been great if Bane turned out to have been Ra's al Ghul? Eric thinks that what they should have done is
Andy Kaufman of villain.
They somehow saved him at the end. At the end of Begins, and he needs that thing on his face to stay alive, and he somehow built himself up that big. I don't know if I would have wanted that, but I still would have liked that better than what they did.
Nah, I don't know.
I like Talia simply because I understand what you're saying, and watching it a second time, there's a lot of visual cues that show that she is Talia.
That's
beyond just the obvious.
But she doesn't get enough screen time for me to give a crap about.
Sleep with Bruce.
Forget about her too.
Yeah.
Well, she's gone long enough to forget about.
I'm not saying that there's not enough lead up to the fact that she's Talia. I'm saying, why am I supposed to care about that?
Because
she's not
sleep with Bruce Wayne.
She doesn't have. Oh, that's hilarious. She doesn't. Because I don't spend any time with her, I don't care about her motivation. It's given in a single line of dialogue, and it's not worthy of this movie. That's what I'm saying. The movie is better than that.
Hey, there's going to be no Damien, too.
Yeah.
That ain't happening.
After they spent the night together, I thought, Damian Wayne, and no.
Let's take another 8-year break. That's what they should have done. Had another 8-year break in the movie.
No, I know what the sequel is now. We're gonna get a Huntress movie because Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle are together.
This is actually a break to the bird.
You know what actually would have been cool? You know, I don't know. One of the things I find first, I enjoyed this movie for the most part, but one of the things that I keep thinking about over and over again is how many things they could have done that would have been cooler. And I hate feeling like that. I don't like feeling like that, especially with a filmmaker I really enjoy. And I was thinking with John Blake, that could have been like Montoya. They could have had that character. And maybe at the end she became the Question or something like that.
And then we would have, and then we wouldn't have had this idea that there's 2 women out of all of Gotham.
Well, it's Nolan. Nolan is not the best women character guy.
Oh, you know what? Speaking of names, let me ask you this, Manos.
Yeah.
Would you please explain to me, because I thought it was cool that they brought this character in. Would you explain to me why it was necessary to change a character's name with such a cool name like Roland Daggett to John?
Oh, that's right.
Because in your review,
I totally forgot about it.
Roland Daggett. He's not Roland Daggett. He's John Daggett.
Oh yeah.
In the same movie with John Blake. Why are we doing that?
Too.
Why?
I'll be honest.
Is Roland such an old school name that we can't put it in this? I don't understand why that was changed.
I actually, to be honest, I'll be clear with you. I didn't catch that. I just heard him called Daggett, and I was like, oh, Daggett, cool. And I didn't even think about the fact that they kept referring to him as John Daggett.
The reason I remembered it is because I was racking my brain while I was watching it, because I heard Daggett. I went, oh, cool, they used Daggett. And I was racking my brain, oh, yeah, what's his first name? And I came up with Roland. And then later I heard him called John. I was like, oh, really?
Maybe it's John Roland Daggett.
That's a comic book complaint. It's not a big deal. Well, it's actually an animated series complaint. But still, I'm just like, why do we have to do that? Roland Daggett, such a cool name.
The general audiences don't know who that character is anyway.
No, it's not. It's not important. But I wanted to throw it out there.
So
I thought it was strange that he was called. I was okay with them calling him John Daggett, but there's already a John Blake. I just thought that was weird. I just quickly want to say, Ben Mendelsohn, who plays Daggett, is an Australian actor who's kind of a legend in Australian TV, and I just thought he was awesome in this. Even though he didn't get to do a whole lot, I just thought he was awesome.
He was great at being a jerk face.
Yeah, and I also enjoyed his henchman, who looked like Crispin Glover as a fish man.
Hey, speaking of henchmen, does anybody else want to bet money that Catwoman's little sidekick, who had all of 30 seconds of screen time, probably had a scene cut out?
I bet.
Yeah. If
I don't know why that was necessary.
If George Lucas had made this film, she would have an action figure.
She'd have an action figure. She'd have a whole backstory. She'd have her own video game.
Yeah.
What is strange is that she was announced as Holly Robinson, and for whatever reason, in the credits, she is credited as Jen. So I don't know why they couldn't call her Holly Robinson. It's kind of a similar thing.
I have an answer.
I was just going to say, it's a similar thing in Dark Knight, where I don't know why Ramirez couldn't have been Montoya, and why Warts couldn't have been what's his name?
Ramirez is a comic.
there's also there's that character who is named Flass from the Frank Miller Year One book, but he looks more like Bullock.
Yeah, and there's a guy who looks
like,
and there's a guy in Dark Knight who looks like Bullock, who could have been called Bullock and isn't. But here's the thing: you wouldn't have wanted Ramirez to be Montoya because Montoya doesn't do horrible, corrupty things. Also, there's an Officer Ramirez in the comics. It's a different character. It's a guy. It's not female, but there is an Officer Ramirez in the comics, so they clearly were pulling from the comics, at least for names.
I just think Nolan likes people that have J in their name.
Maybe so. Hey, Manos, we're 2 hours in, and I know that you can't stay on forever. So let's go ahead and knock out the other couple big things that we haven't talked about yet. And that's the back break, the big one. Manos, how do you? I personally, I'll go on the record to say that I think that it's a little easy that he gets over a back break in 3 months. Do you agree with me or not?
I do agree, and that's one of the story problems I have with the.
Can I bring science into this?
And I'd love to hear your science on the fact that his broken back was fixed in a unsanitary prison that's a pit in maybe India by an old guy who's, I'm sure, like, not cleanly. All he does is push on it, and he's fine. He can, like, go up a rope and fall like 100 times, and then come out, and he's super cool. What's the science behind that?
The science, I wasn't going to say the science behind it, the science behind breaking your back. The reality is when you have your vertebrae broken like that, if anyone moves you, you're a paraplegic. You're automatically paralyzed. Oh. So the very fact that he got moved and then was able to come back and fight crime is totally, like, literally what should have happened after that is that he should have been laying there and watched Gotham get blown up. That would have been the totally realistic approach to it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I thought you were going to fight us on that.
And at that point in the prison, I was hoping, like, man, I hope we see the Lazarus pit here. But, you know, I was like, well, he's this guy, realistic guy, but I mean, it'd be cool to, like, take a left turn. And you could come up with some kind of explanation to make it sound realistic or something.
You know, at the very least.
And it still didn't happen. What's my favorite, actually, you know, one of my favorite supporting characters is that guy who keeps handing Bruce the rope. It's like, I guess he works there or something, and, he's very cool. He hands people the rope, in this horrible prison. And he must have, like, a workout room, because he's, like, really ripped.
He's uber.
And I imagine he has this break room in the back, where, like, he has this microwave that he, like, heats up Hot Pockets, and he, like, has a video, set up where he does insanity. And then somebody wants to break out, and they go, oh, okay, here's the rope.
And then every time somebody comes up to the rope, he's like, okay.
We want this.
Every time somebody comes to the rope, he's like, okay, you can climb or have a pizza roll. What bothered
I like pizza rolls.
What bothered me the most about that was I mean, just the fact that he could just push that bone back into place and his, I mean, of course he went through some physical therapy and stuff, but really when you've got any kind of a back injury at all, you can't tell me that you could possibly fall on the rope like that from that far up and not just break it all over again.
He should have died on that first one.
No, he should have,
and he did it twice.
My thing is, I can accept, because this is the part of the film where Nolan's heading more into the comic book territory, where he does in Begins and Dark Knight, and, people always make this argument that these films are so realistic, or grounded, and I'm like, we have fear toxin, and we have an underground, unknown ninja society. We have a dude who has half his face burned off. We have Batman who's falling from a 100-story building onto a car, and people might say, oh, his cape saved him. Well, if you remember from Begin, he had to touch his cape in order, with his hands, to have the electromagnetic glovey things in order to save him. But no, he just falls and he doesn't break his back, and he and Rachel are fine. There's a whole lot going throughout this series that's very comic booky, very unrealistic.
King, here's the thing. I would agree with you, except that it breaks its own internal logic within itself. Here's the thing. I wouldn't have even thought about it as hard. Honestly, it probably wouldn't have even really bothered me for the very reason you just said, except for the fact that he's on a cane for 8 years. You can't do both. You can't say, oh, because of the few years he was Batman and all the stuff he did leading up to it, he's got no cartilage in his knees. But he can survive a back break and get over it in 3 months. The comics were more realistic than this. You're talking comic book? It took him a year to get over that.
Something that's interesting is that the only way he can walk properly is to wear that knee brace thing. And I'd like to know what happened to that, because I doubt Bane and the guys let him keep that on.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, he should be limping around, and his knee hurts, and his back is broken, it doesn't work, and he dies the first time he falls on the rope.
Okay, but we didn't see them.
Have you ever seen Joe Theismann walk around?
Okay,
should have been him.
But King, regardless of whether or not we saw them take off the knee brace, can you really argue the point that it's okay in a movie that they're trying to be realistic enough that he's lost all the cartilage in one knee, that he also can get over a back break in 3 months? How's that okay?
Part of the thing as well is
how does that not? Oh God! Did you know
quickly is that if he didn't,
King,
if he didn't get over it.
You get 4 wonderfully sarcastic points. I'm giving out sarcastic points, and you just got 4 of them.
No. Honestly, though, I mean, the thing is, I mean, he is, but the thing,
You're not wrong. He is.
The thing that's important to note is, like I've made this point, like you have 2 options: either Gotham gets completely blown up and we sit through a movie where Batman does nothing, or he gets back fixed. You talk about having your cake and eat it too. You can either have it the scientifically accurate, realistic way, or you can have it this way where, he goes through, not surgery, but he goes through I can't think of the word. You just said it a minute ago and now I can't. Therapy. You can't be saying like, oh, he had a back fixed in this one place. I'm like, well, if that's the argument you're going to make, then we have to have a movie where Gotham gets blown up and Bruce just sits there and watch it.
No, not at all. Let me ask you this question. Why? Because again, if they want that to be the internal logic, that you can get over that in 3 months, then they shouldn't also have Bruce taking 8 years not even 8 years to get over a knee injury. He can't get over his knee injury. Why was that necessary?
Well, my thing about that was that he would never.
It's not necessary.
I don't think it was necessary. I think he wasn't trying to. That's the difference. Like, and here he's working toward getting over the back injury.
He has no cartilage in his knee
because he doesn't do anything to it for 8 years. If he didn't do anything about his back for 8 years, I'm sure that he would be completely paraplegic unless he got a brace like he did for his knee.
Manos, would you kindly back one of us up, whichever one you agree with?
What you both are saying is really complicated, and there's no real easy answers, but Logan's right.
What I really
would just
trying
like
to
to
say is
say,
that I have 8 minutes before I have to leave. I don't want to get in the argument.
Oh, okay.
But, no, I think that's where a point where maybe Nolan should have just said, hey, it's a magic pool that heals him. I think no one would have had a problem with it.
I would.
I mean, if you make points about him and Rachel falling in Dark Knight, that's not a big major point of the film. I mean,
yeah, that's the thing, is that this is a giant plot point.
Yeah, this is a sequence. This is a whole turning point of this character in this film and this story. It's very important to the film. There's a couple things here and there you can let it go because they're just sequences and parts. This is like a big section of the film. And it does I don't know, it does take me out of the film when I watch it.
But with that, Two-Face having half his body burned, that's the whole part of the film, him walking around with literally half his body gone.
And works within the internal logic of the film.
I am going to agree with King
his
because
face is burned off.
Why doesn't Two-Face's eye just shrivel up and stuff like that? I mean, he goes days. I mean, at least with Bruce Wayne healing his back, I think it's actually 5 months that he goes. Where not that that's a huge difference, but the thing is, I mean, it's nearly half a year, and even though it's a funny point, I mean, he's Batman. He is a person who has fallen off of things and that, and yes, he has no cartilage in his knees, but I don't know, he either doesn't get healed and the city blows up and there's no movie, or you bring in the Lazarus Pit, which to me, I know it. To me, it bends the realism too much.
That would bend the realism more than getting over a back break that fast.
Yes, I agree. I think it
really
because this is a pool. This is a pool that heals people.
It's totally different than an old scummy guy bending you.
Yeah, it really is.
It is, but but that's my point. It is different.
But both are contrivances. One feels weirder because it's pretending to be grounded. The Lazarus Pit couldn't even pretend to be grounded.
See, the
feel like
advantage the Lazarus Pit would have was it would be the point where your audience can go, well, I can buy him being in totally good shape now because he got into this magic thing, as opposed to someone bending on him, which
feel like
makes it a
Have you
little
ever
more
been-
hard to believe.
Have you ever been bent on, Manos? You really know how that feels.
Kirk,
Well, I
gotta-
really can't talk about that here.
Kirk, I gotta say this other thing, because if it really, and I really think that the movie comes out and says 3 months, but even if it doesn't, you're gonna have a huge other problem if it took him a whole 5 months. Well, it couldn't take 5 months because we know that that's the exact time it would take for that bomb to explode. So he has to get back just before that. But here's the thing. If it took him almost that long to get his back fixed, he doesn't have anything like enough time to get back to Gotham.
No, he had 27 days to get back. And he got there with exactly 12 hours to fix everything and 45 minutes to stop the bomb. And then he only had about 5 minutes to get the bomb out of the city.
And with
God he
zero
teamed up with
money
the
to his name, how did he get back in 27 days?
He talked to a bunch of people out in the outside world, got him back, got into Gotham, saved the world.
Boy, I must have
And
missed
then-
that scene.
and then
He went out to the
Yeah.
bathroom, Logan. There was this great scene where he ran into Skippy, the newspaper boy, and
he ran into
Jack
me.
Black, who's a helicopter pilot.
Well,
ran
I gotta
into me,
apologize
and I
to
hit-
anybody that's irritated with me for constantly bringing this up, but it really bugs me. There's nothing like that in the other movies, and I think it's better than that.
I just want to say that I think we are saying that the Lazarus Pit would be okay because we are comic book fans. Like, you could not say in any other film, like, I don't know, Daredevil is healed because they threw him in the Lazarus Pit. Like, I feel like...
Lazarus Pit also is part of the comic book mythos of the stuff that they're already using. You know what I mean?
But
I feel like
pit,
it's too supernatural for this universe.
and the
So,
pit they're in
that's the
is
thing.
a
It's
metaphor
more
for the
supernatural
Lazarus.
than it is illegal.
Yeah, but what they did already suspends my disbelief to the point of absurdity, I think. You know what I mean? They could find a way to make that part of their internal logic. What they did was just cheating.
Well, I mean, the thing is a metaphor for the Lazarus Pit. He comes out stronger than he was before.
Sure, that's fine, and I like that that's a metaphor. All I'm saying is you can't have both. And I still say I don't know. I don't understand why it was so important of a plot point that he has no cartilage in his knee. All they had to do was not have that part, and I wouldn't be complaining about this. You see what I'm saying?
He was in
But those
better
two
shape.
things in the same movie don't fit.
Because if he was in fit shape, if he was in still peak shape by the time Bane defeated him, it would be a little more acceptable.
That's true, yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Those two things together don't fit.
Because the first couple of scenes he's hobbling around like an old-time sheriff.
That's because I shot him in the knee before movie started.
Why? I thought you liked Batman.
I do, but I wanted to give you something to complain about.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I'm annoying myself complaining about this so much, so I really apologize.
Well, King, we complain because we love.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to stand. We should probably go ahead and end this pretty soon. I'm going to stand by what I've said since I first saw it. I enjoyed it. There's a lot of things about it I really like. Ultimately, I was kind of disappointed with it. I liked it a lot better the second time, and we'll watch it again. So I mean, I didn't hate it. It just wasn't what I wanted.
It was such a great experience for me. I really loved the film. It's still my favorite film of the year so far, especially when comparing it to the other comic book movies that have come out this year. It is my favorite. I love the character arc. I love how it's connected to The Dark Knight and Begins. It works it might not have been meant to be a trilogy, but it works as part of a trilogy. I do have little issues here and there, but all the greatness of the film vastly outweighs the few flaws I see in it. It's not a perfect movie. I'm not, going to go and be like, it's the best movie ever. But it is a very, very good film, and people should definitely go out and watch it.
Kirk, your final thoughts.
Sure. I actually, I think this is an amazing movie. I honestly did think it was a masterpiece, and it was a very satisfying end. I thought that one of the words I've been using when talking to people is that I thought the end was kind of beautiful. Bruce Wayne found peace. I thought that was awesome. And I agree with King. I feel like the positives far outweigh the negatives. It does have flaws. I've gone sort of back and forth on what my favorite in the trilogy is. I kind of lean a little bit more towards Rises, actually, just because it made me, I don't know, in a year with the Avengers and the Amazing Spider-Man, I still thought it was the best of the three. So, I thought this movie was fantastic.
Kirk, you can't see this, but I'm giving you a high five right now.
Manos, finish this off.
Gotcha. Well, here's the thing. Now, I've been kind of negative during this conversation about the film, but I've only been just focusing on things that just frustrated me. Because if you watch my review, I gave this film 4.5 Ram chips. Now, I mean, there are films I love that I've only given 4. And this is the thing. This is what happens when you just set up such high expectations. And, Nolan... you can say Nolan really raised the bar with the first 2 films, especially Dark Knight. And The Dark Knight Rises is, if you want to use that raising the bar kind of metaphor, then The Dark Knight Rises made it over the bar, but raised it to the point where the bar fell off. So, I mean, it's a very enjoyable film. I did have a lot of fun with it. There are, unfortunately, just... because Nolan is such a great filmmaker, and this movie is mostly terrific, the things that don't work just leap out at you. That's saying that's from somebody who loves Nolan films and has dug this trilogy, and is a big Batman fan. So yeah, I mean, there's some things that work and did work. I will say, compared to the other superhero films that came out this year, I thought Avengers was just better, because I thought it was just I thought that was a perfect, complete, fully realized film that works on every level. This is a terrific movie that falters here and there, but the stuff that is really good and works so well and just makes up for a lot of the stuff that doesn't. And compared to other Batman films, I also really like, Batman Returns, even though it's got its major problems. And so, that's maybe, one way to look at it. I also sometimes even think about this film like Return of the Jedi, which, I love Return of the Jedi. There's some dumb things in it that doesn't work, but I more or less love it. And, I've watched it several times, and I'm sure I'll watch this film several times, and we'll buy it on DVD. So there you go.
And I wasn't real sure about that part where Bane was throwing Ewoks out of an airplane.
Oh, that was the best part.
Wasn't sure about that.
They have to send one of us in the rocket rumble.
Eric had a criticism that I didn't bring up, and I'll say this really quickly. How does Bane eat?
Is that really a criticism?
How does he? No, he just. But he just. How does he eat?
He injects it into his arm.
He probably has. Yeah, he probably has to eat intravenously. I mean, you'd be pretty ticked off too if you didn't ever get to eat a hamburger. Like.
Yeah, how'd you like to eat a pizza intravenously? It's not fun.
Well, hey, everybody, thanks a lot for listening to our Dark Knight Rises review panel. Once again, really sorry Eric couldn't make it, and hopefully he takes the chance to put up some more comments about the film and maybe answer some of the stuff we've been talking about it. So anyway, thanks a lot, everybody, for listening, and once again, thanks to Kirk and King and Manos for being with me. I'm Captain Logan, signing